It's time now for the Friend Zone, where we invite one of our friends, even our misguided friends, within the building here at Fox, onto the show. Tonight we're joined by our old pal, Fox's roaming correspondent, Geraldo Rivera. And Geraldo, like taking a page out of Fidel's book, we've been monitoring your social media. And we noticed the other night that you had nice words to say about Comandante Castro. And it raised the question in my mind, what is it about this guy that so excites liberal journalists? It's not his policies. They failed, obviously. He was a totalitarian who didn't have a free press, so it can't be that. There was something, like, irresistible about the guy to liberal intellectuals and journalists. What is that?
Well, I'm not sure that I characterize myself as a liberal intellectual. Like, maybe a moderate intellectual. I'll take that. And I do definitely consider you a friend. You know, I think that Castro was one of the most charismatic figures I ever met in my 47-year career. He emanated a kind of authority. He was very colorful, humorous. I know all of the backstory, and I know how outraged so many people are that I take a nuanced view of this man. But I think he's one of the most iconic figures of the second half of the 20th century. And more than that, you know, you say he had failed policies. I guess you could say he had failed policies, although literacy and health in Cuba is better than anywhere else in the developing world. And he survived for 11 American administrations. You know, he thumbed his nose at the great Colossus.
I get it, the great Satan. But can we be honest? If he was 5 feet tall, weighed 300 pounds, and had a cleft palate, nobody would be sticking up for him. I mean, a lot of people with daddy issues looked at him and are like, oh, you're so great because you're so handsome. I mean, that was part of it, no?
I think it was more rock star than daddy.
Right, okay, whatever. I'm not a shrink, but that was his appearance was part of it.
But, you know, why is it? And you know, going back to this philosophical, ideological divide, why is it that conservatives are okay with China, okay with doing business with Vietnam, where 50,000 GIs perished, okay with doing business with Saudi Arabia, with every tin pot dictator in Africa and Latin America, except for Fidel Castro and now his brother Raul? I just don't get this selective outrage.
That's a fair question, but here's the difference. It's one thing to, you got to do business with the Saudis because they control the price of oil, because they get the biggest excess supply. But nobody says, you know what, I want my son to grow up to be like a Saudi sheikh. You know what I mean? Like surrounded by hookers in Dubai. Nobody hero worships the Saudi royal family or the Chinese government. They hero worship Fidel in this kind of creepy way. No?
Well, you know, look at, I think that historically, he is the most significant figure in Latin America since Simón Bolívar in the beginning of the 18th century. You know, he was someone who embodied a sense of dignity and equality for the Latin people vis-a-vis the United States and the Western world. Even though they were poor, they had a sense of pride. Even now people in Miami, some of the exiles in Miami are celebrating the death of Fidel. But in Havana and through much of Latin America, indeed through much of the developing world, his passing is a tragic event. Oh, he's 90 years old and he was sick for a long time.
Let's be totally honest. In a police state, can you really take people at their word? People wept for days when Stalin died. Presumably some felt it, but others were worried about going to the gulag. Can you really assess public opinion in a totalitarian state? Isn't it naive to say the people of Cuba feel any way at all? We have no idea, because they go to jail if they express views contrary to the government,
well,
right?
I think that you give their secret police too high a grade in terms of their efficiency. There are hundreds, literally hundreds of thousands of people night and day in the streets of Havana, even as we speak. You know, far more than the organized outside world, the people of Cuba are truly mourning, it seems to me, I'm not there right now, the passing of this figure. Now, I also think, let me just hasten to add, I also think the Cubans are ready, willing, and eager to go from Fidel to an embrace of the United States that is, you know, Cubans love America. I think all we need to do is get cell phones there, more cruise ships there. Commercial airlines have started now flying there. I think in 10 minutes, Cuba's going to be totally in the American sphere of influence.
May I ask you one question, though? As a journalist, you spent these many decades, probably close to 5, as a journalist, and the currency in your world, in your life, is freedom of expression. How can you get past the fact that Fidel didn't allow a free press or any criticism of him, a cult of personality that's antithetical to journalism. How can you get past that?
How does Donald Trump get past it with Vladimir Putin? I mean, let's be fair.
Well, Trump's not
here.
a journalist. He's like a developer or something, but we're
he's,
journalists.
He's the president-elect of the
that.
United States of America. I think that, you know, Fidel, how do I get past it? I mean, that is a fair question. I think that you've got to spell out all the things that Fidel Castro did that are horrible, depriving people of property, and the political opponents that he assassinated, and you know, so forth. There's blood on his hands clearly, but there's blood on a lot of hands on a lot of people that the United States does business with.
It's about controlling people's minds. Lots of governments kill people, and it's always wrong, but it's very common. But controlling what people think is the worst sin of all, isn't it? And it's a sin that affects us directly. We're the people who say what we think. We're journalists.
I get that embrace of the Constitution and free speech, but I find it ironic that you say how Fidel quashed free speech, and yet you want to jail people that burn the American flag in contravention of the Constitution.
People who want to. I'm certainly not for that. I'm for people saying what they think, no matter how unpopular.
Well, I really think that, you know, when you're in. I've been with rock stars, all the Rolling Stones, the Beatles. I've been with, you know, Yasser Arafat and Charles Manson, and, you know, every dictator in general, you know, from Southeast Asia to the tip of Latin America. There are people that you connect with in a way, in an interpersonal way, that has nothing really to do with the outside world. You either like them, like I like you. I really like you. You and I come from different sides of the street. We probably agree on a couple of things in the middle there, but and yet I find you engaging in many ways. I find you refreshing in many ways.
So
and I come to bury Castro, not to praise him tonight.
But I hope you'll come back tomorrow night and tell us what a great guy Charles Manson is.
Yeah.
You would. Geraldo, it's great to see you.
He wanted to kill me.
That.
He wanted to put my head in a basket.
I bet he did. Good. Thanks for coming on.
My pleasure. On that note.